My dad yelled, "You're weak, you'll never stand on your own." So I left. Now he's asking to move in with me because the house got foreclosed. I sent him the same words back. "You'll never stand on your own." I'm Daniel, 32 years old, male. And the thing about my dad, Mark, 61, is he's always been a storm disguised as a man. The kind of father who thought insults built character, like words were weights I was supposed to lift until they made me stronger. But all they ever did was bruise. I still remember the night he told me, "You're weak, you'll never stand on your own." His voice cut through our cramped living room like glass, and for a second I swear I stopped breathing. I was 18, standing there with my duffel bag half-zipped, planning to crash at a friend's place for a while. He didn't care. He never did. He looked at me like I was some half-finished project he was embarrassed to show the world. The history between us wasn't simple. When I was little, there were moments, brief flashes, where he actually seemed proud. Teaching me how to ride a bike, grilling burgers in the backyard, or showing me how to swing a hammer. But those moments always had a timer. They'd evaporate the second I made a mistake, turning into lectures about how I'd never be good enough. He'd snatch the hammer from my hands, slam it into the nail, and say, "See? That's how a real man does it." My mom, Carol, 58, was the buffer for years. She'd smooth over the edges, step between us when his voice got too sharp. But she was soft-spoken, worn down from decades of his temper. She'd tell me, "He doesn't mean it, Danny. It's just the way he pushes." I wanted to believe her, but every year the pushes turned into shoves. By the time I was a teenager, I'd stopped seeing him as a father. He was more like a critic who happened to share my DNA. That night, though, when he called me weak, something snapped. It wasn't just about the words. It was the way he smirked while saying them, like he'd been waiting for that moment, like breaking me would somehow prove he was strong. My hands shook as I grabbed my bag, and I said nothing. Not a single word. Because if I opened my mouth, I would have begged him to love me differently. And I couldn't give him that satisfaction. I walked out into the freezing night air, the sound of the door slamming behind me echoing in my chest. For the first time, I realized I didn't just want distance. I needed it to survive. That was the last night I lived under his roof. Leaving that house was like walking off a cliff without a parachute. I didn't have a plan. I crashed on my friend's couch, picked up shifts at a diner, and barely scraped enough together to cover rent on a tiny studio with walls so thin I could hear my neighbors sneeze through them. But even in those moments, scrubbing dishes at 3 a.m. or counting pennies to buy groceries, I clung to the thought, at least it wasn't his voice echoing in my ears anymore. Mark wasn't just tough on me. He was venom wrapped in routine. He worked construction most of his life and he carried himself like the world owed him respect. But respect isn't built by tearing down the people closest to you. Every time he told me I was useless, I felt the weight of his failures being shoved onto my shoulders. He'd dropped out of high school, never saved money, spent what little he had at bars with his buddies, and somehow it was always my fault for not being the son who could redeem him. Carol tried to keep a line with me after I left, but it was strained. I'd call and she'd whisper like she was afraid he'd hear. "Danny, he's just set in his ways. He doesn't know how to show it." I wanted to scream back that love isn't something you hide behind excuses, but I swallowed it. I loved her too much to push her away too. Years went by. I built myself piece by piece, first with odd jobs, then trade school, and eventually landing a steady gig in electrical work. I bought a used pickup, then my first real apartment, and finally, last year, a house. A modest 2-bedroom with creaky hardwood floors, but mine. Every nail hammered, every wall painted, every dollar saved. It was proof I wasn't weak. Proof I could stand on my own. Meanwhile, Mark was unraveling. I didn't see it firsthand, but Carol would let things slip. "He hasn't been working much lately," or "the mortgage is behind again." The man who once towered over me with his booming voice was crumbling under the weight of his own choices. I should have felt pity, maybe. But when you grow up under someone's shadow, there's a part of you that quietly waits to see the giant stumble. Then last month, Carol called with her voice shaking. "Danny, the bank took the house. We're being foreclosed on. He's talking about moving in with you." I froze. For a second, it was like I was 18 again, standing in that living room, duffel bag in hand, listening to him sneer. "You'll never stand on your own." And now, he wanted me to save him. Don't forget to subscribe. 2 days after Carol's call, Mark showed up at my front door. No warning, no text, just his rusted Chevy coughing its last breath in my driveway. I hadn't seen him in years, but time hadn't softened him. His face was red from drink, his shoulders slumped under a faded Carhartt jacket, and he smelled like sweat and stale beer. When I opened the door, he didn't even say hello. He just shoved his way past me, muttering, "Place isn't bad. Guess you finally grew a backbone." My chest tightened. The audacity of it, walking into the life I'd built and still finding a way to belittle it. He glanced around, his eyes landing on the framed certificate from trade school on the wall. He smirked. "Electrician, huh? Not exactly a doctor. But hey, at least you're not flipping burgers anymore." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "Why are you here, Mark?" I didn't even call him Dad. He noticed. His eyes flicked to me, sharp and mean. "Bank took the house. Your mother's staying with her sister for a while. I'm not living in some woman's guest room like a damn stray dog. You've got space." He gestured toward the spare room I used as a workshop. "I'll take that." Just like that. No ask, no apology. A demand. Like he was still king of a castle that no longer existed. Something in me snapped. I laughed. Not out of humor, but disbelief. "You think you can just move in? After everything? After what you said to me?" He narrowed his eyes. "What the hell are you talking about now? You told me I'd never stand on my own." My voice cracked, but it was sharp enough to cut the air between us. "You screamed it in my face the night I left, and now you're here asking me to carry you." His jaw worked, like he wanted to deny it, but instead, he exploded. His fist slammed into my kitchen table, rattling the coffee mug I'd been using. "I made you, damn it! Everything you know, everything you are, you learned from me. You owe me." I flinched at the sound, but I didn't move. My hands were shaking, but I held my ground. "I don't owe you anything." That's when he did something I'll never forget. He grabbed the framed photo of me and Carol at my trade school graduation, ripped it off the wall, and hurled it across the room. The glass shattered against the hardwood, spraying shards near my feet. The silence after was heavier than the slam itself. My heart pounded, my throat tight. He looked at me, chest heaving, and in that moment I saw him clearly. Not a father, not a man, just a broken bully who'd finally run out of places to hide. And I realized this was only the beginning of what he was willing to do to claw his way back into my life. After Mark smashed that photo, I thought maybe he'd storm out, slam the door, and leave me in peace. That would have been almost merciful, but no. He sank into one of my kitchen chairs like he owned the place, rubbing his temples, muttering about how I'd abandoned him. "Your mother said you'd help," he finally spat, his voice rough, almost pleading but still dripping with entitlement. "She said you'd do the right thing, but I should have known. You've always been selfish." Selfish. That word hit harder than I expected. I spent my entire adult life clawing my way out of the hole he dug for me, and now he wanted to paint me as the villain for not letting him drag me back in. "Get out, Mark." My voice was steady even though my hands were shaking. He stood, and for a split second I thought he might swing. His face twisted, veins in his neck bulging. Then, instead of hitting me, he grabbed my toolbox from the counter, my livelihood, the tools I'd collected one by one, and hurled it across the room. Wrenches and screwdrivers clattered against the floor like shrapnel. "You think you're a man now? You're nothing without me," he shouted, his spit flecking my face. I snapped. I shoved him, hard enough that he stumbled back into the counter. The look in his eyes wasn't shock, it was recognition, like he'd been waiting years for me to finally fight back. Before anything worse could happen, my phone buzzed. It was Carol. I answered, my voice trembling. "Mom, he's here. He's tearing my place apart." Her voice was low, frantic. "Danny, please, just let him stay a few nights. He's lost. He doesn't have anyone." I looked around at the wreckage of my kitchen, the shattered glass, the scattered tools, and my chest tightened with something between rage and heartbreak. "He doesn't have anyone because he drove everyone away." There was silence on her end, and then a whisper. "If you don't take him in, I don't know what he'll do to himself." That line gutted me. The guilt she knew would stick. Mark wasn't just weaponizing his anger anymore, he was using her as his mouthpiece, turning her worry into leverage. I hung up without answering. Mark saw the expression on my face and smirked, like he'd already won. "You'll cave. You always cave, he said, kicking one of my wrenches aside like it was trash. Because deep down, you're still that scared little boy I told would never make it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch staring at the broken frame on the floor, replaying his words. Something inside me shifted. For years, I'd run from him, tried to outbuild the damage he'd done. But now he was in my house, trying to drag me down again. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him. I was angry enough to start thinking about revenge. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did. I posted because I honestly needed to get this crap off my chest, but reading through your comments has been surreal. Some of y'all made me laugh harder than I have in weeks. The guy who said, "Your dad sounds like a bootleg Walter White without the brains." I spit out my coffee. Others hit me with advice that felt like a gut punch in the best way. And yeah, a few people DM'd me, telling me I should just be the bigger person and let him move in. To those folks, respectfully, you don't know Mark. Let me clear a couple things up. Yes, he actually trashed my kitchen. The photo frame is in pieces, my toolbox is still dented, and there's a screwdriver mark gouged into my hardwood that I'm probably never getting out. He left eventually, but not before standing in my doorway shouting to the whole damn street that I was an ungrateful coward who abandoned his family. Pretty sure my neighbors heard every word. And Carol, God, I love her, but she's stuck. I know she means well, but she's calling me almost daily now, asking me to reconsider. Her latest plea was, "Danny, if you don't take him in, he'll end up in some shelter and you don't want that on your conscience." Like his destruction is somehow my fault to manage. I don't think she even realizes how much she's being manipulated by him. Reading your comments flipped a switch for me. For years, I've been in survival mode with Mark. Avoidance, distance, build my own life, keep my head down, stay away from the fire. But now, he's tried to set that fire in my home. He wants me to carry him after everything he's done. And the thought that really stuck with me, credit to the commenter who said this, is sometimes revenge isn't about destroying them. It's about holding up a mirror until they choke on their own reflection. That hit me like a truck. So yeah, I'm done being quiet. If he wants to come into my life swinging and screaming, fine. But he's going to choke on his own words this time. He told me I'd never stand on my own, and now he's the one crawling. I've got an idea for how to give him back those exact words in a way he won't forget. Stay tuned. The plan started forming the night after that update. I sat at my workbench, staring at the dented toolbox, the tools scattered across the floor. Those tools were my life. Every job, every paycheck, every hour I spent building the life Mark said I couldn't build, it all came through them. And he had the nerve to throw them like garbage. I thought about all the times he'd spit those words at me. "You'll never stand on your own." And now here he was trying to crawl into my house like a parasite. That's when it hit me. If he wanted to beg, then he was going to beg on the same stage he tore me down on, publicly, brutally, with no way out. Carol called again the next day. She said Mark had been sulking at her sister's place, drinking himself stupid, talking about how Danny owes me. That phrase snapped something in me. I didn't owe him a damn thing. But maybe I could give him something better. A mirror he couldn't look away from. So I invited him over. Yeah, I know, probably reckless. But I needed him to walk straight into the trap. He showed up 2 hours late, as usual, stumbling out of that dying Chevy, wearing the same dirty jacket. He smirked when I opened the door, like he'd won. "Knew you'd come to your senses," he said. "Where's my room?" Instead of answering, I let him inside. The kitchen was clean again, except for one thing. I'd set the shattered photo frame back on the table, the picture of me and Carol cracked but still visible. And next to it, I'd laid out a piece of paper I'd printed in big, bold letters. "You'll never stand on your own." His face dropped. For the first time, I saw hesitation in his eyes. "What the hell is this supposed to mean?" he barked. I didn't flinch. "It's what you told me. The night I left, you screamed it in my face. And guess what, Mark? You were wrong. I stood on my own. I built this life without you. And now, you're the one who can't stand." He went red. His fists clenched, his breathing ragged. He tried to flip the table, but I'd bolted it to the floor years ago after one of my own late-night breakdowns when I thought I might do the same. He screamed, spit flying, veins bulging. "You ungrateful little bastard! You think you're better than me?" I pulled out my phone and hit record. That froze him. What the hell are you doing? Making sure the world hears the truth. You want to move in here? You want me to save you? Say it right now. Beg me. Or walk out that door and figure it out on your own. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. He looked at the paper again, then at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. He didn't beg. He didn't apologize. He just roared, grabbed the paper, ripped it to pieces, and stormed out into the night, tires squealing, engine backfiring down the street. But it didn't matter. I had the video. His voice, his rage, his meltdown captured in full. And I already knew exactly where I was going to post it. I didn't sleep that night. The video sat on my phone, staring back at me like a loaded gun. Every time I replayed it, I felt a rush of something between adrenaline and nausea. His voice screaming, his face twisted, the words he couldn't take back. By morning, I knew exactly what to do. I uploaded it to Facebook. Not anonymously, from my own account, captioned, "This is the man who told me I'd never stand on my own. Now he's demanding I carry him. I built my life without him, and I won't let him tear it apart." I hit post and braced myself. Within an hour, the comments started pouring in. Old neighbors, family friends, even a few guys who'd worked with him on job sites. People saying, "I always wondered why he treated you like that," or "He was the same at work, angry, bitter, always blaming everyone else." One woman even messaged me privately. "Your dad tried to hit on me when I was 19. When I said no, he spread rumors I was sleeping with the boss." The mask was crumbling. Mark called me 30 times that day. I didn't answer. The voicemails ranged from threats, "Take it down or I'll come over there and make you," to sobbing pleas. "You're destroying me, Danny. I'm your father." Hearing him cry didn't feel like victory. It felt like poison. But I didn't stop because for once the truth was louder than his voice. That evening, Carol showed up at my door, pale and shaking. She had her coat half-zipped, eyes rimmed red from crying. "Danny, it's everywhere. Your cousin saw it. The guys at his old job saw it. He's losing his mind." I wanted to hug her, but I also wanted to scream. "He did lose his mind, Mom, years ago. This isn't new. Now people just see it." Her voice dropped. "He smashed Aunt Linda's porch railing last night. Said it was her fault for siding with you. She called the cops, but they didn't arrest him. Just gave a warning." That hit me like a cold wave. He wasn't just unraveling, he was dangerous. And sure enough, 2 nights later, I woke up to the sound of something hitting my house. I rushed outside barefoot, and there it was. My truck's windshield smashed in, a rock still sitting on the hood with a note taped to it. The note read, "You'll regret this. Blood or bond, you can't erase me." My hands shook as I called the police. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him hitting me. I was scared of what he might do to anyone else. And that fear lit the fuse for what I was going to do next. Update 2. Well, things got ugly. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on the video and this thread. I've read so many of your messages that I feel like I've got an army behind me right now. Some of you said what I needed to hear, like, "Don't negotiate with emotional terrorists." Others made me laugh in the middle of chaos. Shout out to the guy who said my dad has final boss drunk uncle energy. Dead on. But here's where we're at. Yes, I posted the video. Yes, it blew up. No, I don't regret it. What I didn't expect was how fast the fallout would spread. Old coworkers of his shared their own horror stories. Neighbors chimed in. Even extended family that always treated me like the rebellious kid messaged me saying, "We had no idea it was that bad." That alone, worth it. But Mark, he didn't take it quietly. 2 nights ago, he smashed my truck windshield and left a note taped to the hood that said, "You'll regret this. Blood or bond, you can't erase me." I called the cops. They took a report, but you know how it goes, unless he's standing in my living room with the rock still in his hand. It's just a piece of paper in a file. And Carol, God, my mom, she's torn in half. One moment she's begging me to take the post down, saying I'm destroying him. The next she's whispering on the phone, "I'm scared of what he'll do." I think she finally sees him the way I've seen him for years, but she doesn't know how to step away after a lifetime of his control. To everyone telling me to just block him and move on, I get it. But this isn't just online drama anymore. This is physical. He's crossed into my space, my property. And if he thinks he can intimidate me back into silence, he picked the wrong son. Here's the part that might sound cold, but it's where I'm at. He told me I'd never stand on my own. Now he's the one with no house, no money, no respect, no control. And when he came crawling, I threw his own words back in his face. That wasn't pettiness. That was justice. I don't know where this ends yet. He's unraveling fast. But I do know this. I'm not caving. Not again. Not ever. And if he shows up here one more time, the next call I make won't be to my mom. The smashed windshield should have been the breaking point. For a sane man, maybe it would have been. But Mark wasn't sane anymore. He was unraveling faster than anyone could catch him. 2 days after the truck incident, I woke up to banging on my front door at 6 in the morning. Not a knock. Full fists, like he was trying to break it down. I peeked out the window and there he was, pacing on my porch, shouting at the top of his lungs. "Open the door, Danny. You think you're a man? Face me like one." The neighbors came out in robes, phones in their hands. Someone yelled that they were calling the cops. He didn't care. He just kept screaming, slamming his fists against the door so hard I thought the glass might shatter. I recorded the whole thing. Every threat, every insult. When the cops finally pulled up, lights flashing, he tried to act calm, slurring something about just trying to see my boy. But they'd seen the video. They told him to leave and warned me to file for a restraining order. I should have felt relief watching him drive away, but all I felt was hollow. Because I knew it wouldn't stop him. Mark wasn't the type to walk away quietly. He'd claw until his nails bled. Sure enough, later that night, Carol called me sobbing. She'd found him sitting in her car, drunk, muttering about how I'd ruined his life. "Danny, he's saying things, dark things. I don't know what he's capable of anymore." Her voice broke, and for the first time I heard it. The fear. Not worry, not guilt, but real fear. After decades of defending him, she finally sounded like a woman who understood what he truly was. "Mom," I said, steady but sharp, "he's not just my problem anymore. He's dangerous. You have to stop protecting him." There was silence on the line, just her breathing. Then quietly, "You're right." It felt like a crack in the dam. Small, but powerful. The next day, I printed out every screenshot, every voicemail, every frame of video. I drove them down to the courthouse and filed for the restraining order. Walking out with that stack of papers in my hand felt like carrying a shield for the first time in my life. But I knew shields don't stop someone like Mark from charging. And I was right. Because 3 nights later, I came home to find spray paint across my garage door in dripping red letters. Traitor. My stomach dropped, but my hands didn't shake this time. I took a picture, texted it to Carol, and said only one thing. He's not just destroying me anymore. He's destroying himself. The word traitor was still streaked across my garage door when the deputy served Mark the restraining order. I watched from my living room window as he read it, his face twisting like the paper itself had burned him. He crumpled it, threw it at the deputy's boots, and shouted, "This isn't over!" But it was. A week later, Carol asked me to meet her at a diner. When I walked in, she looked older than I'd ever seen her. Shoulders slumped, hands shaking around her coffee cup. "He's living out of that truck now," she whispered. "Won't stop drinking. Won't stop talking about you." I expected the usual guilt trip, some plea to take pity. Instead, she looked me dead in the eye. "You were right, Danny. He's never going to change. And I can't save him either." It was like hearing a confession from someone who'd been holding their breath for 30 years. 2 nights later, Mark showed up one last time. I was on the porch, cigarette burning down to the filter, when I saw his Chevy crawling up the street. He parked crooked at the curb, stumbled out, and staggered toward me. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes filthy. He looked less like the man who'd towered over me as a kid and more like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. "You did this to me," he rasped. "You ruined me." I stood. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "No, Mark, you ruined yourself." He sneered, but it faltered when I reached into my jacket and pulled out the same sheet of paper I'd printed weeks ago. The one with his words in bold black ink. "You'll never stand on your own." I held it up between us, let him see it shaking in my hand. Then I dropped it onto the porch and crushed it under my boot. "You said that to me the night I left. And now look at you. Homeless. Broke. Alone. You'll never stand on your own." For the first time in my life, Mark had nothing to say. No insult, no rage, no comeback, just silence. His shoulders sagged, and he turned back toward his truck without another word. The taillights faded down the street, swallowed by the dark. That was the last time I saw him. Carol still calls sometimes, but the conversations are different now. She talks about therapy, about finally finding her own footing. And me? I walk past that garage door every day. The word traitor is gone. I repainted it myself, but in my head, it's still there. A reminder, not of what he called me, but of what I chose to be. I betrayed the cycle. I broke it. And for the first time in my life, I stood on my own, without his shadow hanging over me.